Remember, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. I've dealt with fake situations where they fake accept, where they fake work along with.
Hey lady, welcome back to your new favorite talk show, Grown Lady Chat, with me, your host, Dr. Sherunda Simone. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing part 2 of the 2-part series from a keynote speech that I gave earlier this year at the Rosalind Franklin School of Medicine. They had their inaugural diversity retreat, and I was so honored to be asked to give the keynote speech. So if you have not watched part 1, make sure you watch it. I would recommend first because all the information flows together. So I'll make sure that I link it in the section below here or in a card above. That way you can watch part 1. But if you have already watched part 1, then you know that you are in for a treat. I'm so excited to be able to share this information with you. And based on the comments that I received from the diversity retreat attendees, it is going to be helpful to you as well because they really enjoyed it. And I know that as someone who deals with different biases and prejudice in my personal and professional life, I use these life application skills all the time. And that's how I'm able to, with God's help, I'm able to overcome and persevere in so many ways, even in the face of opposition and the obstacles that happen. So I want to share this with you. Be sure to drop a comment down below if it's your first time tuning in. Welcome, welcome. I'm really happy you're here. And of course, if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for being here. Now, every episode, I like to do a question of the day, so I'll make sure I share that with you in just a moment. The main reason for the question of the day is to generate good conversation, as well as to give you an opportunity to enter into the random giveaways. So if you are a random giveaway winner, then you can either get a home decor item, makeup, skincare, beauty care products, faith-based resources, or personal development tools. All the things I know we women enjoy. So make sure that you're engaged in the community, follow on all the socials, of course, subscribe to the channel, and make sure that you chat it up in the comments. And now it's time for Dr. Sherunda Simone's random but helpful information. I don't know about you, but there have been many times when I have been out and about and I realized that I could really use a safety pin in that moment. But I search even down to the bottom of my purse and there is no safety pin. So what I like to do is I like to take about 1 or 2 safety pins and just hook them onto my keychain or my wallet. That way I have it when I need it. Now, is it always aesthetic? No, but it's helpful. You're welcome.
Hey lady, are you a woman who loves the Lord and who also enjoys beautiful things? Well, if you are, then you are personally invited to join my exclusive Christian women's group. In this group, we chat about clothes, beauty, home decor, parenting, marriage, cooking, and of course, our Christian walk. It's Christian lifestyle all-encompassing. So be sure to join by clicking the link below. I hope to chat with you soon. Now back to our show.
And when those negative situations occur, discrimination, bias, ageism, racism, when they happen, we expect it and we're prepared for it so that we can still show up and bring all that we have to offer to the table. So being prepared, expect the expected. Do not accept it, but expect it and prepare for it instead. Now let's move on to the second part of the answer, strategy. This lovely lady you see here in the photo with me, this is my grandmother, Miss Emmeline Brown. And this picture is taken probably maybe 14, 15 years ago. And she lived to be 105 years old. So she just went on to be with the Lord November of this past year. So anything that she's told me, in my mind, she was the one who quoted it because who else said it before her? But there's a quote that she used to always say to me, and it's attributed to Sir Winston Churchill, but it says, "A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still." A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Now, in 1946, George P. Marshall was under a lot of stress. Why? Because he was the owner of the NFL team, the Washington Commanders. And there was an unsaid gentleman's agreement that was pioneered by Marshall that said the NFL would not hire any African-American football players. However, a few teams, they went back on that. And so now they were hiring African-American football players. But Marshall was the holdout. Now, this caused a lot of struggle and grievance by the fans, and he also got a lot of negative press and publicity over the years. But it wasn't until 1962 when Marshall decided to change, and he hired his first African-American football player to the Washington Commanders. But it was said that it happened after the government got involved and threatened to take away his 30-year lease for the stadium in DC. All right, so let's get into this story, because there's always a story behind the story, right? My husband and I, we enjoy watching documentaries because, you see the glitz and the glam, you see the big picture, but then there's always something that was going on behind the scenes. So the story behind the story is that Marshall changed his position because his team was not winning, right? The other NFL teams that had integrated, they had the added bonus of the experiences and skills and talents of Caucasians as well as African Americans. So there was more diversity, more brought to the table. But since he was not integrating, his team did not have that added bonus. And so his team was not winning. And then, of course, this impacted ticket sales because those who were against segregation were very upset. And the fans who were angry because their team wasn't winning, they were upset. So ticket sales were low. And so, of course, this impacted the bottom line. And so it all leads back to money. Okay, so we go back to the quote, Sir Winston Churchill, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Now, one could say, well, it was because the government got involved, right? No, because if you read between the lines, you do your research, apparently this had not been the first time the government had tried to twist Marshall's arm to integrate. Or some would say, oh, well, maybe it was peer pressure because the fans were upset. Yeah, that is true. The fans were very upset. But we went from 1946 to 1962. So he wasn't really much for peer pressure. So we say, okay, well, what caused the change? Yes, the bottom line, because he realized that his team was better with integration than segregation. Now, when dealing with hatred or bullying or exclusion, discrimination, the tendency, and I know that I've been given to most of these tendencies, the tendency is to want to use brute force, right? By any means necessary. Now, remember, we are still implementing. We are still trying to change the construct. But the tendency usually is to go in there with brute force. All right. And I've done this before. I've gone in because I'm a very outspoken person, and I've definitely stood up to people and said, this is wrong. You should not treat me this way. You should not treat others this way. Brute force. I will be promoted. You will recognize me. You will see me. And sometimes that is absolutely necessary. Then another tendency is just to act out of pure emotion, right? So whether it is fear or anger or tears, I've done that before too, hot tears. The tears that they make your skin warm when they go down your cheeks because you want to do something, but you're not able to, right? So you react instead of respond. Or sometimes you become frustrated because it seems like nothing is ever going to change. I've been there before as well. Or what about waving the white flag and retreating and saying, you know what, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to deal with it, right? Remember, in the professional setting or even as students, you might say, okay, I'm going to deal with it, but I'm going to quietly give up. I'm going to quietly quit. That's a new term that is circling in corporate America, right? Or maybe you want to give up. Now, I will tell you this. I have been extremely close. In case you're out there thinking, oh, well, it couldn't have been that bad. No, I have wanted to give up before. And I was this close to walking away from years of schooling, of money invested. I was very close to walking away and giving up because the discrimination I was dealing with and because of the bias I was dealing with, it was so heartbreaking and overwhelming. I remember times when I would be giving a presentation, a case study, and I'm talking to my peers. And I'm at the front of the room behind the podium, and I'm talking about a case. And from the peanut gallery, I hear someone say, "Speak English, we don't understand you." This is the middle of my presentation. Or I've had where doctors talk over me, physically speak over my head, because I'm 5'4" and they're 6'1", and they speak over me and not to me, not look in my eyes, but speak about the case that I just did or speak about the patient that I'm managing as though I don't exist. So yes, absolutely, I have wanted to give up. So lest you think that you're the only one who has thought about walking away from your investment, walking away from what you know that you do best, you are not alone. But that's our tendency, right? Or the tendency is just to become jaded. You show up to work, you do what you need to, but nothing more. You become callous. Or you want to respond in the same way. Yes, right? You want to do unto them as they've done unto you. Yeah, that's the tendency. Or you become afraid based on what the situation is. Let's say it's harassment of sort. You become afraid. You're afraid for your life. You're afraid for your safety. You're afraid for your job, your income, right? So these are the tendencies. And I've been there. I understand. But what if instead of leaning into those tendencies, instead of giving into those very real responses and most well-founded responses, what if instead we had a strategy? Now, this does not replace what we need to do. I'm going to keep on echoing this, okay, so that you remember this is not to replace all of the changes that need to be made. This is a you thing. This is a me thing. Put your hand and say, this is a me thing. This is for me. What if you had a strategy so you don't lean into those tendencies? What I've realized, and we can look back even to the story with George P. Marshall and his NFL team. What I've realized is that when we are strategic, when we are undeniable and consistent, that is what changes the tides right here. And then it forces others to act accordingly. Remember, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. I've dealt with fake situations where they fake accept, where they fake work along with. I've dealt with that. I'm sure most of you have as well. But what if our strategy is to be undeniable and to be consistent? Going back to the NFL story, Marshall realized the talent, the expertise, the expectations, the benefits that came along with expanding his franchise. And in doing so, he realized that the skills that were brought by African Americans were undeniable. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other races and cultures that could bring that as well. But this is a specific story I'm talking about, but you can extrapolate it into any circumstance. Our strategy should be undeniable and consistent. When I was on maternity leave, I had a coworker who would manage some of my patients while I was away, right? Because I took my leave and there were some of my high-risk patients that needed to be managed. So, and again, you can take this into any other employment situation, because when you're not there, someone has to pick up where you can't, right? So I was on maternity leave, and on coming back from maternity leave, I was informed that by multiple people, including my patients, and I confirmed it. I was informed that he was speaking negatively about the fact that, how dare I have another baby? And how it didn't quite make sense that I was taking my 3 months. In the same breath, he would say, oh, but she's a great doctor. She is very good. And I would highly recommend her. And I would, so what I'm saying is it right? No. But let me tell you something. We don't have to be friends. That's not a requirement in the professional circle. It's a bonus. It's a bonus. Trust me, it's not a requirement. And when you show up undeniable, there are many things that people can say about you, and many things people will say about you. They will. But what they should not be able to honestly say about you is that you don't do what you should do, is that you don't do your work, is that you don't show up with excellence, is that you don't bring it. So when we're undeniable, and when we're consistent, things change because the bottom line will be impacted. George P. Marshall changed his mind because of this strategy. Be undeniable. Be consistent. That should be our strategy. Now, anytime we're talking about strategy and being undeniable, then you have to ask yourself the question, in the face of discrimination and prejudice and bias and racism and harassment, what will I take, or what will it take for me to stick with it? And am I willing to do it? Ask yourself that question, because once you determine what it will take, and if you're willing to do it, then you can put your nose down and get it done. It's going to take some stick-with-itness and some grit. Until the tides change, until we can move the mark, we still have to determine what will it take and am I willing to do it? Because once you have outlined those parameters, then you know what your goal is. And no one can move you off of that mark. Because remember, we're not going to continue to lean into the tendencies. And like I said, I have had all of those tendencies before, okay? But it's a constant redirection, a constant course correction. What will it take, and am I willing to do it? Ask yourself that question. As you're developing your answers, you're being prepared, and you're working on your strategy. When you're defining who you are, who you're showing up as in the face of negativity and exclusion and hatred, what will it take for me to stick with this? And am I willing to do it? Now, you're probably thinking, Dr. Sherunda, we hear you. It makes sense. I see many people saying, yeah, that makes sense. But I know that in the back of your mind, you're asking yourself, is it fair? Is it fair? Is it fair that I should have to work twice as hard to get to the same place? Is it fair that I should have to push through and determine that I'm going to go against the grain? Is it fair that I shouldn't have to or lean into my tendencies, albeit justified? Is it fair? Let me just answer that question for you, because lying is not something I like to do, okay? No, it's not fair. Absolutely not. It's not. But let me ask you a question. Who is it hurting? Who is it hurting when you purpose in your heart, when you determine in your activities that you are going to work on yourself, when you determine that you are going to get the extra certification, that you are going to bolster your resume and CV, that you're going to show up consistently and undeniable in your expertise and your excellence? Who is it hurting? No one. No one. It's not hurting anyone. But the better question is, and this is the good part, the better question is, who is it helping? When you show up, when you work on being the best version of yourself, when you are intentional, even in the face of the negativity, who is it helping? You. You are the one who is being the benefactor of that hard work and those who get to benefit from what you bring to the table. So who is it hurting? No one. Who is it helping you? Is it fair? No, it's not. But my mother always tells me, hi mom, because I know she's watching. My mother always tells me life isn't fair, but God is good. Okay? Who is it helping? It's helping you. You are the ultimate benefactor. The hard work needed to be your best, it is not a sacrifice. We've got to change that thought process. It's an investment in yourself. The hard work needed to be your best isn't a sacrifice. See, when we think of sacrifice, we think of sacrifice as giving up something, whether it's your time, your energy, your money, right? And you're hoping, you're wishing, you're anticipating that something better will come, right? That's what we think sacrifice. Oh, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the sacrifice I make for my children, the sacrifice I make for my job, the sacrifice. It's usually a negative connotation, right? But what if we instead focus on it being an investment? Because an investment, albeit the same resources, time, energy, money, it's given freely. And it's with an expectation and understanding that there will be a better return. There will be a better return on the investment. With time and with our investment, the outcome only gets better. The hard work needed to be your best is not a sacrifice. It's an investment in yourself. So the answer, we've gone over being prepared. We are now strategic. And the final piece, this is the cherry on top, okay? We are going to revoke our consent. You ready? Let me know. You ready? Okay, drop some comments. Okay, yes, I see it, head shaking. Good, good, good. Drop in the chat. Are you ready to revoke your consent? Because this right here, this is where everything comes together, okay? It gets good. I'm excited. I've only had like half a cup of coffee, all right? This is all natural. This is organic excitement because this is the life-changing part. Okay, so revoke consent. You see this pretty little girl here in the picture? And I'm talking about myself a lot because I've dealt with a lot of things. I don't want to speak for other people. I like to speak. You see this little girl right here? Yes. This was me in high school. So I went to high school in Jamaica, all girls boarding school. And it was this was maybe my first or second year. And this little girl in the photo decided that she wanted to become the head girl. Now, I'm not sure who all is on. Okay, I see Maureen is shaking her head. Right. So Maureen must have either British or Caribbean roots. Yeah. Okay, Maureen's going to drop something in the chat. I can tell she's typing. I like it. I love interaction. Okay, so this little girl right here decided that she wanted to to serve as the head girl for her class. Now, head girl, for those who are not aware, it's a very big deal. It's a very big deal because you are elected in a leadership role that is pretty much right below the teachers and the other staff members. And you have to get elected. You can only be elected by the majority vote of the student body as well as the teachers. And we're talking about all years, but you can't be elected or even nominated until your final year of high school. So here it was, my first or second year of high school, and I had purposed in my heart that I wanted to be the head girl of my year. So of course, eager Sherunda, I tell some people, I tell some of the girls in my class, some of them were my age, and you had upperclassmen, and the response was, you want to be head girl? Look, we know you and we know your class. You are not head girl. Don't even give it a second thought. Now, they said that in patois, so it was much more colorful. Okay, they said that in the dialect of Jamaica. But I remember thinking to myself, wow, I mean, you could have literally seen my shoulders just descend to the ground. And for a split moment, I gave my consent. For a split moment, I did. I gave my consent. I agreed with the naysayers. But then I had a trapper keeper. Drop in the comments. Who had a trapper keeper? I'm showing my age here. Yes, we had a trapper keeper. I had a trapper keeper. And in my little trapper keeper, there was this quote. And by the way, you can still get them on Amazon. I plan to get one this weekend. I looked it up. You can still get trapper keepers on Amazon. But this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt: no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. I was like, wait, what? You mean I can control how someone makes me feel? And, as adults, we can say, oh yeah, of course. And we tell our children and we tell other people, you purpose in your heart not to let that bother you. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is not true. You have to purpose in your heart for them not to hurt you, because life and death is in the power of the tongue. It's powerful. So I read this quote and I took it to heart. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Now, the concept of consent, as a doctor, that's, my overarching perspective. But regardless, when you give consent, you're giving permission. You're giving agreement too. So when I have a patient sign consent for a procedure, there is the regular jargon. Okay, this is the procedure I'm going to perform. Do you agree to it? When you sign, you say, yes, I agree to it. But then there's this little line in there, and it's a medical legal line. And it's a cover your tail line. It's a just in case line. And the line reads something to the effect of, in the event that things don't go as planned, the doctor has permission to do carte blanche, right? To do whatever is needed to rectify the situation. Of course, in the patient's best interest. But the statement is still in there. Patient signs and they give their consent. And so when I think of the word consent, when I think of all that entails, it's almost as though when we agree with naysayers and the haters and those who are doing the offense, when we give agreement, we are consenting to their carte blanche input. No, we cannot do that. We have to revoke our consent. So I want to ask you, who or what have you given consent to? What coworker, what family member, what friend, what situation, what bias, what prejudice, what exclusion have you given consent to? Remember, this does not replace fixing the problem, confronting the problem. This does not replace that at all. But who have you given consent to? What have you given agreement to? What have you given carte blanche in your life, in your surroundings, in your circumstances? Revoke that consent. Revoke it. Take it back. It might take some work, but you can take it back. Now, I am not one of those speakers who just like to get you all motivated and send you off. No. I believe that we have to have practical action steps. We have to be practical. So when I speak of revoke, in turn, I mean replace. So when the negative thoughts come, because they will come, you're going to capture your thoughts and you're going to replace them with strategic ideas. Because remember, we're strategic now. We're being undeniable and we are being consistent. So when the negative thoughts come, instead of leaning into the tendencies, albeit well-founded, instead of leaning into those tendencies, no, we're going to capture those thoughts and we're going to use those thoughts and replace them with strategic ideas and actions. When the negative memories surface, right? Wendy and that dime, that nurse in that operating room, even just recently, I walked into the room and I said, good morning, I'm Dr. Josie. And the person in the table, the patient had a visceral response. Like you could see the whole body just, whoa. When those memories surfaced and I realized like you were extremely shocked that I walked through the door. Now, is it my stunning beauty? I don't know. But something shocked you. Something made you just, or you get this response. Who do you think you are? What makes you qualified? I've had patients ask me, now, how did you get to become a doctor? Like they expect some convoluted story. I went to school. I applied. The government gave me money. What are you looking for? So when these negative memories surface, capture that pain and fuel them to be prepared for the next encounter. We're not accepting it, but we're expecting it. Revoke your consent. When frustration, anger, or fear creep in, use those negative emotions to fully solidify your determination to succeed. Remember, we're working on ourselves as we work on the construct, as we attempt to change the narrative, right? We're still doing that. This is in addition to, but this is the me work. This is so that you can show up how you're supposed to bring what you're supposed to the table with class and confidence. So do the me work, right? When the frustration, anger, fear creep in, use that to fuel your determination to succeed. Purpose to move forward, despite the attempts to keep you stuck, hurt, and in pain. Because remember, at the start, I said, life is what you make it, and every thought and action create it. And we can sum everything up with this quote by Marcus Aurelius. I thought it was so appropriate. And it reads, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Thank you so very much. I am truly, truly appreciative of the time that we spent together. This is my contact information. I want to invite you to request a leadership ebook that I've put together. I am a professional speaker. This is what I do when I'm not caring for patients, caring for my husband, my family. And it truly gives me life to help you in navigating your own life. So reach out to me. I want to continue to serve you. And remember that I am Dr. Sherunda Simone, and I will either see you at the top or from the top. You decide. Thank you.
And before you go, be sure to drop a comment down below. I would really love to hear what was the most valuable piece of information that you got from either part 1 or part 2 of this series. Alrighty, lady, that is it for today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to answer the question of the day, chat it up in the comments, and be engaged in the community. Also, this is your personal invitation to join my Christian women's email community. I will link everything for you down below. And if you have an event or a conference coming up, or you are on a committee where they're looking for speakers, be sure to email me, reach out, because I would love to discuss an opportunity for me to come and share with your group. Until next time, remember, I am Dr. Sherunda Simone, and I will either see you at the top or from the top. You decide. Bye.